All right, question came in from Greg. It says, for curating personality or bonus content playlists, in-house resources aren't available. Do you think it's okay to use Spotify? Yeah, I do, Greg. And here's how I would classify that. The I'm an old guy in programming. I go way back into the 80s. And I remember a time in the early 80s. Um, the general thinking was, if there's a football game or a baseball game going on right now, don't give the score until it's over, because by giving the score, we're going to be promoting that people leave and go listen to the game. And there was also traditional thinking that went along the lines of, when a major television event takes place, like the Grammys or the Academy Awards, or the series finale of MASH was a big one, or the Who Shot JR episode on Dallas. This is going back way longer than most of you guys have been in radio, but I was around. The marching orders were, don't talk about it because we don't want people to turn off the radio and watch TV. And I think that was faulty thinking. It's kind of laughable now when you think about it, because we know that people are going to watch TV. They are going to pay attention to sporting events. They're going to go do whatever they do. And we can be more relevant if we're a part of that, instead of pretending like it doesn't exist. I think Spotify now is the same place. People are going to Spotify for music. It's very popular. They are a valid entertainment source, and listeners use them. We can pretend they don't exist, but they do. And we're much better off if we embrace it, don't hide from it, and make it a part of our brand, and do it in a way that fits under our personality brand. So I think it's fine to use Spotify, to curate lists through Spotify. Is it going to send people to Spotify where they discover them? Yeah, maybe, but they probably already know about it anyway. And that doesn't mean they won't come back to us. We just got to make sure that we have something that's worth coming back to. And once again, I think that's where our personality brands, and our unique offerings come into play. So yeah, I would absolutely use Spotify if that's what you need to do. Question from Reed. The difference between a Spotify playlist curated by a stranger in New York City or a music director in my hometown, the music is likely very similar. I think the difference is, if not the music director in your hometown so much, but a personality on the air that they look up to as a celebrity. I could check out a Spotify playlist that's put together by Justin Timberlake, and it might be the exact same songs as my friend down the street would create. But if Justin Timberlake put it together, it would have more credibility. It would have more appeal. And the point I was making in the presentation is that your personalities are, or should be, looked upon as celebrities, as something that the audience looks up to. And there's a lot of anticipation for that. It came out in the research that I did over and over and over again. They really feel like they have a connection with the talent, or want to have a connection with the talent. And if the talent were putting those playlists together, we have a lot of appeal for them. But I don't think it's just putting the playlists together. I think it's also curating those playlists and talking about it, talking about why they chose this song, why this song is important to them, why this playlist came together the way it did. So even if the music is very similar, doesn't really matter. It's what's between it and the fact that it came from one of you, if that makes sense. If there are any other questions, I'm happy to take them. That's all that's up on the screen for right now. And I will give you another couple of minutes here, and then we're going to call it a day if no more questions come in. So it's kind of your last call for questions here. By the way, some of you are on the webinar today, the trial membership of the Insiders. Insiders is something that I would encourage all of you to do, to be a part of. A lot of you are. It's for my clients and the paid members. You get premium content. A lot of the things we talked about today is what I do with Insiders. Premium content, behind the scenes, some go a little bit deeper into a lot of topics, and the webinars and the archived webinars are all a part of that too. So you can, if you're an insider, you can get archives of the webinars that we do every month. We got about 35 or 40 of them up there right now. Jerry says, talk about the difference between connecting with a cause versus just being local. Well, there's a huge difference. Jerry, being local is demonstrating to the audience that we live here and we care about the same places that you care about. Having a cause is really getting your roots into that community and doing something that makes a difference. I can be local just by referencing landmarks and streets and talking about neighborhoods and communities. I can talk about what's happening at the local sports teams, but that doesn't mean I'm doing anything about it. Connecting with a cause could be local, but it doesn't have to be local. It could be broader than that. It could be topical. When I was programming my stations here in San Diego, we're a hot AC station. Our FM was a hot AC station that was targeting 25 to 39-year-old women. And our cause was domestic abuse. And so we went as far as to start our own charity. We called it Becky's House. We built 2 transitional shelters for victims of domestic abuse as a result of that, which benefited the local community. But our cause was for women who were in a dangerous situation and needed to get out. And when you talk about a cause, you're talking about emotions, and connecting with those emotions is much more valuable than just talking about people locally where they are. In fact, I'll make the case that local is not nearly as important as emotional, especially now. I think the local is global. The world is getting smaller. And I think your audience doesn't really care that much where the broadcast originates from. What matters to them is how that broadcast affects them on a personal level. And I think a cause will get you personal with that audience. Grant says, is there any indication from the research that millennials are more on board with blinks and sponsorships opposed to traditional 30s and 60s? Grant, I'm glad you asked this. I'm going to write a series of blog posts that'll be coming out over the next 2 or 3 months that go a little bit deeper into some of these points. I didn't have time to go into everything that I learned on the webinar. There's a little bit more that'll be in the ebook that you get, but I did go into that in detail in commercials. One of the things they said about commercials is, I don't get why they have to be so long. Why does it take 4 minutes? They call it 4 minutes for an advertiser to tell me what they're selling, when they could say it in 10 seconds. And if I want it, I got it. If I don't want it, I don't need to hear all about it. Everything's happening faster. So I didn't ask them specifically about blinks or sponsorships, but 30s and 60s, both of them too long. That's a way that we can reduce commercial inventory and actually increase advertiser effectiveness. I know there's some broadcasters who are experimenting with a lot more 10s and even 6-second ads. I think there's a lot of potential in that. The problem is a lot of managers see that happening and they say, great, we can add some more. It's not that big of a deal to add some 6-second spots. Just another 6 seconds isn't going to hurt us. Well, we're adding spots. What we need to do is replace those 30s and 60s with 6-second spots and 10-second spots and sponsorships. I did also ask them a lot about endorsements from personalities, especially live endorsements that are embedded in content. They love getting recommendations from personalities they care about, and they trust those recommendations, but they can also see through it when you're just a talking head for the advertiser and it's not authentic and you're not really recommending it. So those have a lot of value, and they're not looked at as much as commercials that are those traditional produced 30s and 60s. There's a lot that came out of that. And again, I think that we have to look at things in whole new ways. Follow-up is, would that roll out into more stop sets but much shorter islands, or a big block of 6-second spots clumped together? Another great question, Grant. If those of you who have been on the webinars for the last couple of years have probably heard me talk about this 2 or 3 times. I believe that we are programming our stations today for the rating services and not for the audience. And the people who make up the rating services are very different than the rest of the population. And we've got to get away from that, because while we might be winning a ratings war, we're losing the battle for attention and for the audience, because those people who agree to carry the devices around with them and have everything they're listening to measured aren't like real people. And we need to be more conscious of how we appeal to and motivate real people. And I believe if we really look at how media is consumed, we would run more frequent stop sets that are much shorter, and we get back to the content more quickly and create a more consistent brand around the clock. And we stop taking into account trying to start our stop sets before our competitors get into and out of stop sets. Because what's happening is when one station goes into a break in a market and the listeners punch around, everybody else is also in commercials or about to go into commercials. And they get the impression that all radio stations do is play commercials. And it adds to the problem that we have. So I think we got to get really creative in a lot of different ways and break out of the addiction to programming for the rating services. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, you can always email me. If you want some more detail, you can email me. Watch the blog. If you're not getting the newsletter, you should be, because I'll be writing on these topics in some more depth over the next couple of months.